We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
President Trump warns China that carrying out a Tiananmen Square-style crackdown on Hong Kong pro-democracy protests would harm trade talks between the two countries. In comments that followed a huge defiant march through the streets of the global financial hub.
China's government unveils plans to boost the mainland city of Shenzhen and make it into what state media called a better place than neighboring Hong Kong following another huge pro-democracy rally in the semi-autonomous financial hub.
Malacanang said President Duterte believes that it was natural for countries including China to engage in espionage even from a distance.
And a successful Guerrero re-showing in Baliwag, Bulacan.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
Now to the news. U.S. President Donald Trump warned China that carrying out a Tiananmen Square-style crackdown on Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters would harm trade talks between the two countries. He said that he'd like to see Hong Kong work it out in a very humanitarian fashion. Let's listen in.
Well, I think President Xi obviously has this in mind because he probably would have acted faster. So I think he has at least something in mind having to do with trade, because it's something he could do fairly easily. It could be, unfortunately, very ruthless. So I do think it plays on his mind, and I do think he is thinking about what I've had to say. It would have an impact on trade. There's no question about it. I can't believe it. You know, I tell you, I've never seen 2 million people. When you talk about crowd size, Maggie, those are serious crowds, the Hong Kong crowds. I mean, when they said 2 million people on the streets, that really looked like 2 million people on the streets. No, I think it would be very hard to deal if they do violence. I mean, if it's another Tiananmen Square, I think it's a very hard thing to do if there's violence. And, you know, that I'm president, but that's a little beyond me, because I think there'd be, I think there'd be tremendous political sentiment not to do something. So I hope, because I think we're going to end up doing a very good deal. And I think China, by the way, needs a deal much more than we do. But I really do believe that if this weren't part of the deal, possibly something would have happened already a long time ago. Well, I'll tell you what I do support. I support liberty. I support democracy. I understand what's going on very well over there. I'd love to see it worked out in a humane fashion. And I think they have a great chance of doing it. Look, I put out, and I told you, that I really believe, I have a confidence in the talents of President Xi. I think if he met with the protesters within a very short period of time, they would work something out that's good for everybody. I really believe that. He's a very talented man. I mean, aside from everything, he's a very talented man. He's very smart, very talented, and I know him well, probably as well as anybody. And I believe if he sat down with them, now, that's not his deal, sitting down with people. He doesn't do that. But I think maybe the world changes. I really believe if President Xi sat down with representatives of the protesters, and they do have representatives, pretty good representatives, pretty strong representatives. I've been watching and seeing them. If he sat down, I think he'd work something out, and I think it would be good for everybody. But it does put pressure on the trade deal. If they do something negative, it puts pressure. Now, that deal I can sign by myself. It's structured, so I don't have to go to Congress. But I respect Congress. I respect the views of Congress, and I respect, most importantly, the views of the people of our country. And I think it would be much harder for me to sign a deal if he did something violent in Hong Kong.
The U.S. President has previously voiced concern for China's military amassing close to the Hong Kong border. He has not specifically expressed being in favor of the protests, but has expressed amazement by the number of protesters and has emphasized that he supports liberty and democracy. Last week, China's state-run daily, the Global Times, said there won't be a repeat of Tiananmen Square in a rare reference to the crackdown. China is much stronger and more mature, and its ability to manage complex situations has been greatly enhanced, the newspaper wrote in an editorial. Analysts say any intervention in Hong Kong by Chinese security forces would be a disaster for China's reputation and economy. Protesters in Hong Kong feel that such freedoms are being taken away since President Xi came to power. What initially began as protests against plans to allow extradition to mainland China. Demonstrators are now demanding the resignation of the city's leader, Carrie Lam. Protesters also want full democratic election and an independent investigation into what they claim is police brutality against the protesters. Sunday's march, billed as a return to the peaceful origins of the leaderless protest movement, was one of the largest rallies, they say 1.7 million, since the protest began about 3 months ago, according to organizers, the Civil Human Rights Front.
Over 100 people gather in support of the ongoing pro-democracy demonstrations in Hong Kong at Lafayette Square outside the White House in Washington, D.C. Under a deal signed with Britain, authoritarian China agreed to allow Hong Kong to keep its unique freedoms when it was handed back in 1997. But many Hong Kongers feel those freedoms are being chipped away, especially since China's hardline President Xi Jinping came to power.
Everybody knows what's going on back in Hong Kong, right? Like people are all out on the street against the bill, the illegal bill, you know, to send the people back to China, which is it's definitely a huge. You know, you don't see this in past 20 years. So we're here, we're trying to get our voice to be heard by the Chinese government or the Hong Kong government.
I hope the government, the leader, will sit down face to face. They are discuss about the Hong Kong the problem. Will solve the Hong Kong problem peacefully, and not like the Tiananmen Square the moment.
Hong Kong is in danger. U.S. can help. Please help. And everyone, every U.S. citizen, as long as you want to help, you can help. You can send letters, you can contact your senator or representative and make them take a stand on this issue. We are not powerless. The power is always in the people, not just like these politicians. They cannot do whatever they want. You are the force. You have the stake in this community.
Human rights for Hong Kong people.
Meanwhile, thousands demonstrated across Canada in support of the Hong Kong democracy movement Saturday, facing off against vocal pro-Beijing rallies in cities across the country. The gatherings come as the Asian financial hub holds protests for the 11th week running, with both pro-democracy and pro-Beijing demonstrations held in the city over the weekend. Supporters of China and Hong Kong have increasingly held rallies in countries around the world. Demonstrators from both camps squared off in front of a metro station in the western city of Vancouver, home of a large Chinese community, with the crowd separated by police. Supporters from both camps also confronted each other in Canada's largest city, Toronto, where the atmosphere tense.
The mob mentality is definitely there. We don't want separation. We love Hong Kong. We love China. We want them to stay together, and we don't want any sort of violence. If they want to talk, we can all sit down and have a conversation like adults do.
We want to tell you guys that the brutality of Hong Kong police and also the government for ignoring the demand of us and so many blood and sweat every single day from Hong Kong people.
Meanwhile, China's government has unveiled plans to boost the mainland city of Shenzhen and make it into what state media called a better place than neighboring Hong Kong, following another huge pro-democracy rally in the semi-autonomous financial hub. Weeks of rallies, demonstrations, and occupations have plunged Hong Kong into crisis, which Beijing is now framing as an opportunity for Shenzhen's development. On Monday, state-run media outlined a set of guidelines released by the central Chinese government that aims to turn Shenzhen into a pilot area of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Without giving much in the way of specific details, the policy document included goals such as transforming Shenzhen's economic strength and development quality into one of the best in the world by 2025. It also outlined an intention to build greater integration with Hong Kong and Macau. By 2035, the southern Chinese city will lead the world in overall economic competitiveness, the document said. Now, Hong Kong, on the other hand, is at risk of falling behind, hinted the nationalist state-run Global Times, citing experts. If Hong Kong is still not ready to embrace opportunities to join the country's development, the city's development would be very limited in the future, while Shenzhen is running at a much faster speed, according to Tian Fei Long, a professor at Beihang University, speaking to the Global Times. Published on Sunday, the timing of the policy document coincided with the 11th week of demonstrations in Hong Kong, the biggest challenge to China's rule of the semi-autonomous city since its 1997 handover from Britain.
Police in the U.S. state of Ohio have arrested a man for threatening a Jewish community center on Instagram. James Reardon Jr., 20, was arrested by New Middletown police on Saturday. He faces charges of menacing and harassing. He's being held on a $250,000 bond in Mahoning County Jail and is scheduled to appear in court Monday. Police said he had an arsenal of firearms and combat gear in his home when he was taken into custody. Investigators said the alarm was raised when a post appeared on Instagram showing a man firing a gun with the caption, "Police identified the Youngstown Jewish family community shooter as white nationalist Seamus O'Riordan." Within 7 hours of receiving the information about the post, police served a search warrant and arrested Riordan. In addition to the weapons and ammunition that were seized from his home, Riordan's electronic devices were also taken. Police also found a flask with a Confederate flag and jacket with an IRA, Irish Republican Army, patches on it. After the arrest, the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation issued a statement thanking law enforcement agencies for their swift action.
In other news, riots broke out and a local parliament building was torched in Indonesia's Papua on Monday. Thousands were protesting against the weekend detention of pro-independent student activists. Take a look. Authorities closed all local schools for the day. Papua, which has been the scene of a decades-long insurgency against Indonesian rule, shares a border with independent Papua New Guinea, just north of Australia. A former Dutch colony, Papua declared itself independent in 1961, but neighboring Indonesia took control of the resource-rich region following a UN-sponsored independence referendum that was widely viewed as a sham. Monday's riots were triggered by reports that authorities tear-gassed and detained some 43 Papuan University students in the Southeast Asian nation's second biggest city, Surabaya, on Saturday, Indonesia's Independence Day. Local media and Papuan activists said police in riot gear stormed into a dormitory and used tear gas in a bid to force out students who allegedly destroyed an Indonesian flag. National Police spokesman Dedi Prasetyo did not deny reports that police used tear gas, but he said the students in Surabaya were only questioned briefly before being set free.
Malaysian ex-leader Najib Razak's most significant 1MDB trial, which centers on claims huge sums ended up in his bank account, was postponed Monday for a week after prosecutors said they were not ready. It is the second trial linked to scandal-hit state fund One Malaysia Development Berhad that the former Prime Minister is due to face since his long-ruling coalition suffered a shock election loss last year. Billions of dollars were looted from 1MDB and spent on everything from real estate to artwork in a fraud allegedly involving Najib and his inner circle. Proceedings were to open Monday over suspect bank transfers linked to 1MDB totaling 2.28 billion ringgit, but lead prosecutor Gopal Sriram requested a delay to next month.
This morning we have two separate cases. You witnessed that we appeared in court number 1, the High Court number 1, which is the High Court that is dealing with the trial of the 1MDB. Now that trial is fixed to commence today for the next few months, not continuously, but in substance taking almost the whole of the relevant months until November.
63 people are dead, 182 wounded after a suicide bomb attack at a wedding celebration in Kabul. First, you see the shoes piled here into the room and the blood stains on a tablecloth, chair covering the shattered ceiling tiles of the banquet hall. The massive blast, which took place late Saturday in West Kabul, came as Washington and the Taliban finalized a deal to reduce the U.S. military presence in Afghanistan and hopefully build a roadmap to a ceasefire. Afghanistan's president blamed the Taliban for the attack in a tweet, but the Taliban is denying any involvement in this suicide attack. The wedding was believed to be a Shia gathering. Shia Muslims are frequently targeted in Sunni-majority Afghanistan, particularly by the so-called ISIS or Islamic State group, which is also active in Kabul but did not immediately issue any claim of responsibility. Wedding guest Hamid Quresh told AFP the young couple were saying their vows when the bomb went off.
Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi tells a news conference in Tehran that it has warned Washington against making another attempt to seize an Iranian tanker that has departed Gibraltar despite a U.S. bid to have it detained.
جمهوری اسلامی ایران هم از طریق مجاری رسمی که داشته به ویژه سفارت سوئیس در تهران هشدارهای لازم رو به مقامات آمریکایی داده که چنین خطایی رو مرتکب نشن چون با عواقب سنگینی مواجه خواهد شد.
Iran had been locked in a high-sea standoff with U.S. ally Britain since Royal Marines seized the tanker off the coast of UK territory Gibraltar on July 4 on suspicion it was shipping oil to Syria in breach of EU sanctions. 2 weeks later, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps impounded the British-flagged tanker in strategic Gulf waters in what Britain called a tit-for-tat move. Gibraltar, in a statement on Sunday, said it could not comply with the request because Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is not viewed as a terrorist organization by the EU, which the British territory is currently part of. It also said that U.S. sanctions preventing oil exports from Iran could not be enforced by the EU, reflecting what it said were the very different positions and legal regimes in the U.S. and the EU.
And as an Iranian oil tanker caught in a standoff between Tehran and the West left Gibraltar Sunday night, President Trump said that Iran would like to talk, attributing it to poor economic conditions in the country. He referred to Iranians as very proud people. President Trump noted, but their economy, he said, is crashing. Let's take a listen.
And they very much want to make a deal. They just don't know how to call because they're proud people, and I understand that. But I have a feeling that maybe things with Iran could work out and maybe not. If you notice, they haven't taken any of our boats. They haven't taken our ships. They've taken ships, but they haven't taken our ships, and they better not. But I will say this. I really think that Iran wants to get there. They have a great potential. I say this about North Korea. North Korea has tremendous potential. Also, Iran has tremendous potential, and we can do something very fast, but they don't quite know how to begin because they're proud people. They're very proud people, but their country is crashing. Their economy is a disaster. They've got to do something, so let's see what happens.
The news continues. Zero and Eagle News International will be right back.
With gorgeous white sandy beaches that stay cool to touch even on the hottest summer days, blue-green ocean waves, and the warm ocean breeze, there's no wonder why Dr. Beach has named Siesta Key, Florida, the #1 beach in the United States. Don't forget to watch episodes of Digital Nest every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. I'm Melissa Protest, coming to you from Siesta Key, Florida, and I am one with 25.
6 people were injured and more than a dozen people were arrested in yesterday's standoff between right-wing extremists and anti-fascists. President Donald Trump had tweeted that the city was being watched very carefully. Hopefully, the mayor will be able to properly do his job. Police were out in force, keeping the opposing camps apart as demonstrators converged on a waterfront park. Authorities arrested at least 13 people, but there were no serious injuries, a police spokeswoman said. Authorities had seized batons, homemade shields, bear repellent spray, even curtain rods. Following the dispersal of the rallies, small groups of opposing demonstrators broke into scuffles, attacking each other with their fists and pepper spray, according to witnesses.
There's a huge attempt right now in our country to hate our country, to hate the flag. They don't say hate freedom, but that's the goal. They want us to hate freedom. So right now, you know, people on the West Coast are fed up.
For us, it's great because no one got hurt, no one got arrested on our side. We got to go say what we wanted, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. There should be no time link to that.
This is our city. This is where we live. This is where we keep our friends and family safe. They might think something very similar, but the only thing we hate about them is the fact that they just don't like us for the sake of existing. We don't like them because of that reason. And our presence here just shows that we're not scared of them.
Saturday's far-right gathering was organized in part by a group that calls itself the Proud Boys and says its members are young, Western chauvinist men. The Southern Poverty Law Center, a major civil rights organization, has classified the Proud Boys as a hate group. Its leaders say the goal of the Portland rally was to have the so-called Antifa movement declared a domestic terror organization, news report said. Antifa stands for anti-fascists and refers to a loose international coalition of activists and protesters who oppose far-right ideology. There have been scattered incidents of violence purportedly involving Antifa members.
At least 10,000 people are homeless after a massive fire swept through a crowded slum in the Bangladeshi capital of Dhaka. It destroyed thousands of shanties. Take a look.
যে তখন আমার এক লোকটা কইলো একটা আগুন আগুন আমার হাতে নিতে শুয়েছে তখন উপর নিচে দেখি আমার রুম তো দুতলা মাসার দুতলা করছি চা দিয়ে ওই কোনার ভিতরে আগুন জ্বলতে আছে
ডিগ্রিতে পড়ি নতুন ইয়ারে উঠছি বই খাতা কিনছি নতুন ভাবে যে পড়াশোনা করবো আমার 5 বছর চলতেছে এখন তারপরে যাবতীয় জামা কাপড় থেকে শুরু করে মেশিন ছিল তারপরে টেলিভিশন আরো অনেক কিছু যাবতীয় অনেক কিছু ছিল র্যাক আলমারি থেকে শুরু করে সব পড়ে গেছে
In other news now, Britain's Prince Andrew has said he was appalled by allegations of sexual abuse surrounding Jeffrey Epstein after a video was released purporting to show him at the home of the convicted pedophile in 2010. The grainy video published by the Mail on Sunday claims to show the prince waving goodbye to a woman as she leaves Epstein's New York mansion in 2010. Epstein had pleaded guilty in 2008 to procuring for prostitution a girl under the age of 18 and served 13 months in prison before being released on probation. The video was the latest in a string of revelations about Prince Andrew's friendship with Epstein in British tabloids. The Mail on Monday said the prince had hosted Epstein at Balmoral Queen Elizabeth, its home in Scotland, in 1999, at a time when the monarch may have been in residence. He also reportedly hosted Epstein at Sandringham and another royal residence in eastern England a year later. Previously, Virginia Roberts, one of Epstein's alleged victims, has testified that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew in London when she was 17. She said she had sex with him again in New York and on Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. But the allegations were struck from the record by a U.S. judge in 2015 who said the lurid details were not needed to decide a civil case concerning Epstein. Buckingham Palace has reportedly and strenuously denied the claims, calling them false and without foundation. Prince Andrew briefly referred to the allegations at the Davos annual meeting in 2015, saying, "I wish to reiterate and reaffirm the statements already made on my behalf by Buckingham Palace. My focus is my work." The prince was Britain's special representative for international trade and investment for 10 years until 2011, when he gave up the post following intense scrutiny over his relationships with Epstein and other controversial figures.
In other news, German Chancellor Angela Merkel recalled the importance of a humane Europe Monday as she took part in commemorations in Hungary to mark the 30th anniversary of a pivotal moment in the fall of the Iron Curtain in 1989. Take a look. Speaking along her Hungarian counterpart Viktor Orban, with whom she has clashed in recent years over the issue of migration, Merkel said the pan-European picnic held at the Austro-Hungarian border in 1989 reflected the values of solidarity, freedom, and a humane Europe. The two leaders were addressing a church service in the city of Sopron to mark the anniversary of the picnic, during which at least 600 East Germans crossed the border and escaped to freedom in the West. The first mass exodus of East Germans since the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961. It was seen as a key factor in the fall of the wall itself 3 months later. Historians say the total toll is still not known, but there are 21 documented cases of East Germans being killed while trying to escape via the Bulgarian border, including an incident in 1980 which matches Solokov's recall action. At least 695 are thought to have made it safely across, with more than 1,500 attempts being foiled. The last known case resulting in a death was that of 19-year-old Michael Weber, who was shot in July 1989, just weeks before the Iron Curtain crumbled for good. Meanwhile, the commemoration is a rare encounter between the two great survivors of European politics, with Merkel in office since 2005 and Orban since 2010. Their last major bilateral meeting was in July 2018, when Orban made his first visit to Berlin for 3 years. It was an awkward affair during which their divisions were on full display, and Merkel accused Orban of failing to respect humanity with his harsh anti-immigration policies. Orban has been a sharp critic of Merkel's 2015 decision to open German borders to those fleeing Middle Eastern conflict zones.
At a time when Europe prepares to mark the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Iron Curtain, the issue of communist-era killings of East Germans who tried to flee to the west via Bulgaria's southern border remains taboo. Watch this.
Today there is no sign that across the hill overlooking the Bulgarian village of Brashton lies the border with Greece. But 82-year-old Shahim Solokov remembers that during the Iron Curtain era, Brashton was on the front line of the border that split Europe in two. 2 East Germans were shot around here in 1980 trying to flee to the west, their bodies carried through the village on a mule.
They were running away. They wanted to go from the German Democratic Republic to West Germany, but border control was very strict over there. They thought it would be easier here in Bulgaria, and so they came here, but they were caught. It was like this back then. If they catch you at the border, there's no mercy. You get the bullet.
Rusty barbed wire, a monument to the border army heroes, and deserted barracks are all that's left from that time. Researchers like Stoyan Rachevsky are still struggling to piece together the stories of those who lost their lives along Bulgaria's southern borders.
This is what is really sad. They were first of all very young, almost children, unarmed, with no other aim than rejoining their relatives, mothers and others, who were left in West Germany.
Foreign trespassers were rarely armed, but border guards were instructed to prevent crossings at any cost.
When I would see that the border itself was just steps away, I was obliged to shoot. That was the instruction.
Using Bulgarian and German archives, researchers have recently found 21 cases of East Germans being killed trying to escape via the Bulgarian border. At least 695 are thought to have made it across, with more than 1,500 attempts being foiled.
In other news, presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said President Duterte believed it was natural for countries, including China, to engage in espionage or spying, even from a distance. This after the country's defense chief, Delfin Lorenzana, warned that the planned Chinese manned gaming hubs may spy on military camps in the Philippines. Secretary Panelo said the government had the intelligence monitoring capability, adding that they shared the view of National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon Jr. that the important thing was we know where they are. Take a look.
The President said that the proximity. The President said any foreign national working here group need not be near the military camps in order to get intelligence, because considering the high tech, even if you're 1,000 miles away, they can spy on us if they want. Moreover, the President said countries do spy on each other. That's, I think, SOP for all countries. And I share the sentiment of Secretary Esperon when he said, what is important is we know where they are.
Yes.
Okay ang ating capabilities sa intelligence information. Tayo. Kaya hindi siya nag-worry doon. He's not worried because we have the intelligence capability of knowing what they are doing.
A church group held a training and seminar to promote awareness and to reach out to the deaf community through sign language. April Masongsong reports.
We are here tonight in Toronto, Canada, where the first ever CSD, Christian Society for the Deaf, launching and seminar training is being held to promote awareness and to reach out to the deaf community through sign language. According to the 2000 survey of the Canadian Association of the Deaf, there are more than 350,000 deaf Canadians and 3.21 million hard of hearing Canadians. Thus, communication proves difficulty as deaf and sign language speakers rely on visual and gesture communication. This results in a social need and an ongoing concern for the deaf community when it comes to looking for jobs and meeting their daily needs.
Sign language is very important. First of all, it's for communication with those who have special needs or those who are deaf. We know that that is the form of their communication, and so especially that the church is reaching out to different communities. That includes the deaf community, and so it's very important that the brethren also are aware and are knowledgeable about sign language.
As the first CSD, Christian Society for the Deaf, the members of the Church of Christ in Greater Toronto hope to achieve a meaningful recognition to the deaf and hard of hearing community and eliminate the language barrier that often isolates.
What we have now is an activity approved by the church administration. So you see the brethren, they're from different local congregations who gathered themselves and unitedly participated in the activity we have now. It is what we call as a deaf awareness seminar and a sign language seminar training. We have we were able to teach the brethren sign language, and everyone's happy learning sign language.
Well, it was a very helpful seminar. Some of the basics, like I remember Father in heaven, and just simple things like hello, hungry.
Can you spell out your name?
My name? PJ is pretty simple. It's 2 letters. Let's see. So P was P and then J. Just drop J. So.
All voices deserve to be heard. The Christian Society for the Deaf brings forth significance in connecting with a community that speaks and expresses themselves in a unique way. It is one of the growing organizations that gives way for these connections to take place, thereby allowing more voices to be heard, accepted, and understood. Reporting from Toronto, Canada, this is April Masongsong, 1 with 25.
Thanks, April.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Health is our most...
U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed recession fears. He also downplayed the effects of tariffs imposed on Chinese goods. He said that the world's most populous nation is bearing the majority of costs incurred by levies. Last week, financial markets indicated a recession could be on the way. This is because it became cheaper for the U.S. government to borrow for 10 years rather than 2. And this also inverted yield curve that they say often comes before a recession or at least a significant slowdown in economic growth. Let's listen in.
I don't see a recession. I mean, the world is in a recession right now. And although that's too big a statement, but if you look at China, China's doing very, very poorly. They've had, I just saw a report, they've had the worst year they've had in 27 years because of what I've done. And they want to come to the negotiating table. You know, they're having companies lose, I mean, they're leaving. The companies are leaving. And they're laying off millions of people because they don't want to pay 25%. And that's why they want to come to the table. I don't think there's another reason other than President Xi, I'm sure, likes me very much. But they're losing millions and millions of jobs in China. And we're not paying for the tariffs. China is paying for the tariffs for the 100th time. And I understand tariffs very well. Other countries, it may be that if I do things with other countries, but in the case of China, China is eating the tariffs. At least so far.
But a lot of economies.
Yeah, Phil, honestly, I'm prepared for everything. I don't think we're having a recession. We're doing tremendously well. Our consumers are rich. I gave a tremendous tax cut, and they're loaded up with money. They're buying. I saw the Walmart numbers. They were through the roof just 2 days ago. That's better than any poll. That's better than any economist. And most economists actually say, Phil, that we're not going to have a recession. Most of them are saying we're not going to have a recession. But the rest of the world is not doing well like we're doing. The rest of the world, if you look at Germany, if you look at European Union, frankly, look at the UK. I mean, look at a lot of countries that are not doing well. China's doing poorly. Parts of Asia are doing poorly. We are doing better than any country or even area anywhere in the world. We're doing great. Also, when you go in and analyze the curve always means that about 2 years later, maybe you'll go in. That's a long time, 2 years. But I don't think so. Interest rates are low. I think I could be helped out by the Fed, but the Fed doesn't like helping me too much. But frankly, we have money that's pouring into our country because they want the security of the United States. We have billions and billions of dollars daily that's pouring in. We've never had anything like this because they want to come into the United States. That's a great thing. That means we can loan that money out. Mortgage rates are at an all-time low. Borrowing costs are at an all-time low. It's probably a great time. I told Secretary Mnuchin that this is a great time to refinance our bonds or some of our bonds. You know, the money is pouring into the U.S. like never before and like no other country has ever experienced, including China money. I mean, China money, everybody, they're all coming into the U.S. So we've never had anything like it. I think our economy is very, very
President Trump said he doesn't want to do business with Huawei due to national security threat. U.S. media a weekend report said that the administration was planning to extend a reprieve, a 90-day reprieve that allows it to buy parts from U.S. companies.
Huawei is a company we may not do business with at all. And it was sort of reported, I think, the opposite today. I was surprised that we are open to doing business. We're actually open not to doing business with them. So I don't know who gave the report. Now, they have little sections of Huawei like furniture and other things that we could do, but when you cut out sections, it gets very complicated. What's being sold, what's coming in. So at this moment, it looks much more like we're not going to do business. I don't want to do business at all because it is a national security threat. And I really believe that the media has covered it a little bit differently than that. So we're looking really not to do business with Huawei. And we're actually talking about not doing any business because, again, the rest of it is not national security, but it's very difficult to determine what's coming in, what's not coming in. It's still Huawei. So we'll be making a decision over that in the not too distant future. But it's a little bit the opposite of what seemed to be reported this morning.
Huawei, considered the world leader in super fast 5th generation or 5G equipment and the world's #2 smartphone producer, has been blacklisted by U.S. President Donald Trump amid suspicions it provides a backdoor for Chinese intelligence services, which the firm denies. As a result, American companies are theoretically no longer allowed to sell technology products to the firm, but a 3-month exemption period was granted by Washington before the measure came into force. That ban could prevent the firm from getting hold of key hardware and software, including smartphone chips and elements of the Google Android operating system, which runs the vast majority of smartphones in the world, including Huawei's. The trade war has also escalated significantly since President Trump's meeting at the G20 summit in June with President Xi. The president said earlier this month that the U.S. would impose a 10% tariff on $300 billion in goods imported from China. He said then he would delay imposing the tariffs until December 15 so as not to cast a shadow on Americans' holiday shopping plans.
Iceland honored the passing of Ökol, its first glacier lost to climate change. Scientists have also warned that some 400 others on the subarctic island risk the same fate. Take a look. Glaciologists stripped Ökol of its glacier status in 2014, a first for Iceland. In 1890, the glacier ice covered 16 square kilometers or 6.2 square miles. But by 2012, it measured just 0.7 kilometers, according to a report from the University of Iceland from 2017. According to a study published by the International Union for Conservation of Nature in April, nearly half of the world's heritage sites could lose their glaciers by 2100 if greenhouse gas emissions continue at the current rate. As the world recently marked the warmest July ever on record, a bronze plaque was mounted on a bare rock in a ceremony on the former glacier in western Iceland, attended by local researchers and their peers at Rice University in the United States, who initiated the project. Iceland's Prime Minister Katrín Jakobsdóttir and former United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Mary Robinson also attended the event, as well as hundreds of scientists, journalists, and members of the public who trekked to the site. It said the next 200 years, all our glaciers are expected to follow the same path, and this monument is to acknowledge that we know what is happening and what needs to be done. Only you know if we did it, the plaque reads. It also labeled 415 ppm CO2, referring to the record level of carbon dioxide measured in the atmosphere last May. The plaque is the first monument to a glacier lost to climate change anywhere in the world, according to Simon Howe, Associate Professor of Anthropology at the Rice University.
I think and I hope that this ceremony will be an inspiration not only to us here in Iceland, but also for the rest of the world, because what we're seeing here is just one phase of the climate crisis. A big part of our renewable energies is produced by, in the glacial rivers, producing electricity from the glacial rivers. So I think we also need to be conscious of that's why the disappearance of the glaciers will affect our energy system.
When you're asked to write something like this, you think in a completely different time scale. It's almost when you're sending text to the moon or something. And by writing in something eternal material, that makes you think differently. And actually, normally in our lives, we don't think that what we're doing has consequences or will be somewhere in 200 years.
A wildfire raged out of control on the Spanish island of Gran Canaria, Monday, forcing more evacuations as flames in some parts rose so high even water-dropping planes were unable to operate, authorities said. The fire, which is devouring the mountainous center of the holiday island, popular for its breathtaking views, has forced the evacuation of several villages, which according to the census have a combined population of 8,000, a spokeswoman from emergency services said. The exact number of evacuees was unclear. No fatalities have been reported. So fierce is the fire in what is a UNESCO biosphere reserve that in some areas it is beyond our extinction capacities, Federico Grillo, head of emergency services in Gran Canaria, said late Sunday. On the northwestern flank of the blaze, flames have risen as high as 50 meters, that's 160 feet, preventing ground crew from getting near or water-dropping aircraft from flying above. More than 700 firefighters and other ground crew and 14 water-dropping helicopters and planes were working on bringing the blaze under control on Monday. With the temperature set to rise, authorities estimate it could take days before the blaze is brought under control. The fire broke out days after another wildfire in the same region forced the evacuation of hundreds. Gran Canaria is the second most populous of the Canary Island in the Atlantic off the northwest coast of Africa. The archipelago received 13.7 million foreign visitors last year, over half of them from Britain and Germany.
Esports popularity continues to rise across the globe. 1 week after Fortnite awarded its winner $3 million, the NBA 2KD, the first operated esports league by a U.S. professional league, crowned its winner $360,000. Tenny Sumagi reports.
With $360,000 and bragging rights on the line, the T-Wolves Gaming and 76ers DC square off at this year's NBA 2K Finals. Which team will rise to the top and be this year's winner?
It's a battle between the hottest team in the league, riding on an 11-game winning streak, and the winningest team in the league's 2-year history. Coming together as fans have expected, a high-level best-of-5 series with engaging trash-talking between players and a point guard battle between the league's best virtual players. T-Wolves Gaming, Michael Bear the Beast Key, and 76ers GC's Ethan Radiant White. After surviving a 3-hour technical delay, T-Wolves Gaming got their storybook ending. An underdog squad that overcame a tumultuous start of the season to become the first expansion team to win the NBA 2K League Finals. Bear the Beast's overall dominating performance earned him Finals MVP.
Thought I was playing. y'all must thought I was playing. These ain't laughing and giggles. They got $360K on the line. I want to go get that bag, you heard? We ain't playing no games, but we was down. We was down and out, 1-3. They was punching us, they was kicking us, they was saying we ain't gonna get up. We fight, baby, we got heart. That last game right there, that's who we are. We'll go get it out the mud. Them boys playing defense. We saying all game long. Feast don't never talk. Feast, hey, I'm here. Y'all better do some offense. I'm here. Turn up, B. I'm here. Y'all better do something. I'm here. All game long. We ain't got it out the mud. That's us right there. I couldn't ask for a better game 5. I ain't really have to do nothing with these dogs on my team. You hear me?
Signing off from the NBA 2K League studios in Long Island City, I'm Tenny Sumagi, 1 with 25.
The rescreening of the movie Guerrero was a certified box office hit in Bulacan last weekend. More details from MJ Ricardo.
MJ Ricardo here reporting over here at SM Baliwag Cinema. It's a rescreening of internationally acclaimed film Guerrero.
A certified box office hit for moviegoers in Bulacan as they flock to SM Baliwag for the re-screening of Guerrero, written and directed by internationally acclaimed director Carlo Ortega Cuevas. Last weekend, August 17 till the 18, 2019, the audience were quite diverse from all walks of life. The program was hosted by Rapido.
Maraming salamat po una sa ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan na binigyan po kami ng ganitong pagkakataon na yung mga kapatid po sa distrito po ng Bulacan ay mapanood ang isa po sa palabas ng EBC Film na talagang inabangan po ng aming distrito dahil sa ito po ay nabalitaan na po nila na napanood sa ibang distrito ay talagang napakaganda.
That's why a lot of people came here. It's like a box office sold out, and they're requesting for one day more.
Masasabi natin dahil sa ang mga kapatid ay talagang overwhelmed sila sa napanood nila, kaya yung mga kapatid isinir nila ito sa mga kapwa nila mga kapatid at mga dinudoktrinahan sapagkat kapupulutan nila ng mga Christian values, mga pananampalataya, tamang pag-uugali, pagsusunuran ng magulang sa anak sa magulang.
Guerrero cast members were present, including Joycel Cabanlong, Julio Sabinorio, Genesis Gomez, and award-winning director Carlo Cuevas.
This is a rescreening for the first time here at SM Baliwag, a box office hit. What can you say about it?
Thank you so much po to the District of Bulacan and to all the brethren and the people here in SM City Baliwag. We're so happy. We didn't expect this po because Guerrero is 2 years ago. Then it's still like this. The people's reaction about the film is so overwhelming po.
I interviewed you a little while ago at Eagle News Live about what's your reaction about the best foreign feature film won at Los Angeles Independent Film Festival Awards.
Ayun, I still remember during the time na nag-shooting kami ng Guerrero 1. Sa shooting, doon na kami nakafocus sa every scene. Wala kaming iniisip na any awards. Hindi namin iniisip kung magiging successful ba to, paano ba mangyayari. Basta ang ginawa lang namin, puro devotional prayer din. Ayun, after nung mga screening, nagkaroon ng mga awards. Sobrang bait ng Diyos. Hindi namin ina-expect yon. Then, kagaya nga, nagkaroon tayo ng awards sa Los Angeles. Then, na-mention nga.
Mga kapatid, kung nabitin po kayo dito sa Guerrero 1, at dahil mahal po namin kayo, dahil mahal kayo ng pamamahala, mayroon pong part 2 ang Guerrero. Ito po ang Guerrero doon.
Truly, indeed, a box office hit of Guerrero. And so, watch out for Guerrero 2 Tuluyang Laban. Only here at SM Baliwag. This is MJ Ricardo. I am one with 25.
Thank you, MJ.
Thanks, MJ. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And of course, congratulations to Guerrero. And of course, you are in Guerrero. Yeah. Congratulations. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles and we're one with 25.